All right, welcome to another edition of Ranking the Songs here on Rock Show Critique. Joining me today, as you can see, my partner in crime, Mr. Davey Cretin. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. Great to be back. And this is our 15th video together.
Wow, time flies. I still remember our first
Ranking the albums of Kansas. And I've
with
done
Miss.
15 shows with you and a bunch with Tom and even a few with Mr. David Hens.
Yeah, it's hard getting the gang all together, but we got a special episode today. Probably a band people probably wouldn't have imagined us getting to, considering there's so many other bands out there we haven't touched yet as far as ranking the songs are concerned, but I'm going to give them a little something to chew on here. And that is going to be the top 10 songs of Blondie. So this one was very interesting. What do you got to say about Blondie?
I remember first hearing them in 1978 when Parallel Lines came out. And my late friend Joel claimed to have been one of the first online in Corvettes to buy that album many moons ago. And that was the first Blondie album I became familiar with, first one I ever owned. Big fan ever since.
All right, very good. Yeah, my Blondie thing goes back probably around to that same time frame. Heart of Glass was really big, and that's the song that broke them and really got them out in the public eye. Even though they really made a name for themselves, obviously playing the club scene in New York City there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so but yeah, they're still touring to this date. They're still out there. Their last album, Pollinator, came out a couple of years back. I think it was 2017. Solid album. What can you say? A lot of these classic rock bands that have been around for a long period of time, you don't always get these decent albums that late into their career. Usually it's a fly-by-night thing. They're just putting out new material, just to hopefully sell. And nowadays it's not about record sales. Let's be honest. It's all about having some product out there maybe to help with the concert touring. That's what it's all about. That's where they make the bulk of their money nowadays, these bands.
Yeah.
These legacy
100%
acts.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So without further ado, let's dive right in. What do you got for number 10?
Number 10 comes from 1979 from the album Eat to the Beat. It was not a single in America, 3 minutes and a little under 3.5 minutes long. It did, however, chart in England at number 13 because Blondie were big in England. Of course, like a lot of American bands, they sort of broke there almost before they broke here. They had chart hits. There is a video for this album, and it's very weird because Deborah Harry is playing rhythm guitar in the video. I think they did videos for every song or almost every song from Eat to the Beat. This song has a great vocal by Debbie Harry. And of course, great drums by Clem Burke, one of my favorite underrated drummers. And I really like Nigel Harrison's bass lines at a lot of Blondie songs. And this one is no different. Union City Blue. And I love the range of her voice. And it's a sweet song. It's a little bit melancholy. And it's based on a film I didn't even know that she did in 1980 called Union City. But contractually, she couldn't perform or play any music in it. And she wrote this song based on her movie role in the film Union City. So that's something I have to find and see one day. So at number 10, Union City Blue from Eat to the Beat.
All right. My number 10 is going to stay on the same album. 1979's Eat to the Beat there. And another song that never was released as a single, but for some reason it just caught my attention. That's one of those albums where you happen to just put it on and, oh, this song's pretty cool. This song's pretty cool. You knew the hits from it, but when you go to listen to the rest of the album, it's actually a really, really good album. I mean, so my number 10 is going to be none other than Die Young, Stay Pretty. Song that never really got no airplay or anything, but for some reason, this is one of those songs that just stood out really good for me when I put on this album. And everybody always thinks that I stick to the hits. Well, not necessarily on some bands that might be the case, but not on this one. This was definitely a very deep cut that you seem surprised by. So I
Yes,
definitely shocked you off to start the bat here, so which that's pretty good.
because it has a whole reggae feel, a reggae beat to it.
Yep, set it up for the precursor to Tide is High, I would guess. You know.
Good thinking.
All right, so number 10, Die Young, Stay Pretty. What you got for number 9?
Number 9, as you were saying, Blondie is still relevant and current to this day because they've made studio albums, but they had a big layoff between 1982 and 1999, a 17-year break. And I think it was precipitated basically because Chris Stein was so sick. And Blondie split up, I guess, personality differences, clashes. They came back in 1999 with a record called No Exit. And this song, the studio full-length version, almost 5 minutes long, it was number 1 in the UK, but it only reached number 82 here, although it got a lot of airplay and video play. The first single from No Exit, Maria, written by keyboard player extraordinaire Jimmy Destry, produced by Craig Leon. And the song is all hooks. It's got vocal hooks, drum hooks, guitar hooks. In fact, the guitar riff in it sounds a little like Footloose by Kenny Loggins, of all things. The bow na now na now na now na now. That's what it reminds me of, Footloose. It's such a catchy song. I can't believe it only reached number 82 in America, but it did get airplay on rock radio, alternative radio, some pop stations, but it should have done better. And it's just a mystery. Maybe the time wasn't right for Blondie to have a huge comeback, but they did well in England like they always did with the song. I just think it's catchy, it's poppy, it's upbeat, hooky, buoyant. Great song, Maria, my number 9.
They weren't on MCA by some chance, were they? No, just kidding.
No, they were on Beyond Music.
Just our inside joke with MCA here.
The Musical Cemetery of America, MCA.
Yep. All right, very good. So that's your number 9. I'm gonna go back to 1979 for the year. We're gonna go back to E to the Beat. And we're gonna go back to another song that never really got any airplay. It was never released as a single. You're going, what's wrong with this guy? Why is he picking all these no-name tracks? But number nine for me is going to be Accidents Never Happen in a Perfect World. Yeah, this is one of those great songs that I stands out for me. I don't know. I just love this. This whole album is just really, really killer. All these great songs. There's like no filler on the album anywhere, really. And all these songs resonated with me just very well. I just love the chorus is great playing on the song, and what else can you say about Deborah Harry's vocals? So she really hit it out of the park on E to the Beat. I think, in my estimation, I feel that's like her most solid vocal performance on any record album. But we're not ranking albums, so not yet. But that's my number 9. Accidents Never Happen.
Okay, my number 8 comes from the year 1980. And it's not the song that people might think, because they did have a huge hit in 1980 with a song from the American Gigolo soundtrack. But this song comes from their Auto American album. It reached number 5 in the UK. It reached number 1 in America. 6.5 minutes. The first official song on the Billboard chart at number 1 with a rap in it. I have to include Rapture because it's a groundbreaking song. And it's written by Chris Stein and Debbie Harry, produced by Mike Chapman, who produced all of Parallel Lines and all of E to the Beat. Great producer, songwriter, plays some instruments, sings background vocals here and there. Excellent guy, Mike Chapman. But moving back to this song, this has a rap in it. Both of the lyrics were written by both Stein and Harry. Stein wrote the part of the whole Man from Mars thing because he was a big fan of science fiction and B movies. So that was his idea. And then Debbie wrote all the rap parts, really. They were scenesters in New York. Like you mentioned, Blondie were big on the club scene in Manhattan, but they also hooked up with some of the original hip hop guys from the Bronx in the 70s. They were fans and they knew Fab Five Freddy and they knew Grandmaster Flash. Fab Five Freddy is in the video for Rapture. Grandmaster Flash was supposed to be there, but he didn't make it. They're both mentioned in the lyrics. And it's a really cool video for those who haven't seen it. It's very downtown New York, Soho street life kind of stuff. And it's an excellent song. And it was just huge. And it brought rap to the masses because it was an underground art form in the Bronx in the 70s. Rap started a little over 50 years ago. And it sort of took Blondie. Blondie's the one who brought rap or hip hop, whatever you want to call it, to the masses in 1980 with their number one song, Rapture. So that is my number 8.
Okay, very good. And interestingly enough, when you said 1980, you almost scared me there for a moment, but my number 8 also is from the year 1980.
I know what it is.
And it's also a number 1 song. And that's going to be none other than The Tide is High, also from the same album as Rapture, Auto American. You know, it's amazing, Auto American, 2 number 1 singles on it. It went platinum. I almost get the feeling, though, it seemed like if they didn't have that album at that time that they did, I feel that their descent would have been a little bit sooner. This prevented them and kept them alive for, you know, that one more album, The Hunter there. You know, and it's weird because they just came off 3 number 1 singles in a year, right? Because Call Me was number 1, I believe, too. So you got three number 1s. You're at the top of your game, yet you only sold 1 million albums. You know, you figure you would have sold a lot more. You know, it's weird because, you know, they were on that trend of their last couple albums going platinum. I guess they were more of just a platinum even keel band, that just not enough to push them into the double and triple platinum like some bands that we've seen.
And they sold a lot of singles instead of LPs, probably.
No doubt, you know, 3 number 1s.
And if it was recertified, maybe it would be double platinum by now. But record companies don't want to do that because they have to pay the artists more money. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I just feel that Auto American never really, you know, even though they had the 2 big songs on there, never really ever see it out there much. No one ever talks about it. It's one of those kind of like forgotten albums in a way. The songs were bigger than the albums, you know, on that particular one.
The 2 singles, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, what can you do? But, you know, Tide is High broke some ground, like you said, with the previous song you mentioned. It's got that reggae feel to it. Tide is High definitely, no, it wasn't a song that was written by Blondie. It's actually a cover they did, written by John Holt. It goes back to 1967, believe it or not. Wow. A rock steady song. So yeah, it was. They took it and kind of made it their own, and they brought it back into the pop culture with a great, fantastic job on this song, and that really brought it right to the forefront there, reaching all the way up to number 1. And I remember getting to see these guys once. Saw them a couple times, but one moment stood out when I got to see them at the venue Art Park. For those who might see my shirt, that's why that Blondie played Art Park twice. I remember when they played Tide is High, man, that seemed to be the highlight of the show for that one show, believe it or not, oddly enough. Just one of those great songs that transformed great to the live setting as well for them. So that's what I got. Number 8 from Auto American, The Tide is High.
Coming in at number 7 for me, going back to 1979, Eat to the Beat. This was released as a single. It hit number 84 on the Billboard chart. But I always thought it's a very good hard rock song, although it's described as a funk rock song. I still think it's more of a hard rock song because of the guitars and, of course, Clem Burke on the drums. So underrated, so amazing. He was even in the Ramones for a moment. About a month or two, he was Elvis Ramone, believe it or not. But Didn't work out. He's too busy of a drummer. But this song that came in at number 84 on the Billboard singles chart is called The Hardest Part. And it's more of a deep album track. It's got great guitars, great drum work, and a cool video because Deborah Harry is wearing a long black wig in it. So she looks very different, and all the band are wearing sunglasses. It's one of those performance clips. Great guitar work in the song and drum work. Just a hard rocking song that I always liked. A good deep album cut. The Hardest Part, my number 7.
All right, very good. So my number 7, we're going to dig back in. We're going to go into for the first time for me, we're going to go into the 1978. We're going to Parallel Lines, and none other than the number 39 smash, Hanging on the Telephone, which is a song written by Jack Lee, and it was recorded with his short-lived power pop band, The Nerves. Back in 76, believe it or not. So it's just a few years later, Blondie decided to make their version of it, and presto, it made a top 40. Very noticeable, trendy song. I mean, I didn't even know it was a cover, tell you the truth. And if you're familiar and big on the track and know of it, Def Leppard did a great version on one of their albums, their covers album.
Oh Yeah? Is that the one called Oh Yeah?
I believe so. They were paying homage to Blondie for, they really liked Joel Elliott, really loved that song, so they had to record it. So yeah, so that very good song, Hanging on the Telephone. They play it a lot still in concert, and it's definitely one of the standouts from Parallel Lines that hasn't gotten old for me from that album. At number 39 for the charts, that was pretty good back in the day. Top 40 hit, and it got them through until their next album came out in 1979. So Hanging on the Telephone, my number 7.
More on that later. My number 6 stays with the same album, different track. At number 24, the great rock song One Way or Another, written by Debbie Harry and Nigel Harrison, peaked at number 24 on the singles chart, produced by Mike Chapman, of course. It is actually a song based on one of Debbie Harry's ex-boyfriends, who in the early 70s, she had broken up with him, but he was stalking her. So she wrote the song, which is a song obviously about a very serious subject, but she put a little twist in there so it wasn't so depressing and sad of a song. And she has the whole thing with I'm gonna get you, get you, get you, get you. And it's a big hook. It's got great guitar riffs in the song. Burke's drumming, the way he bashes away, hits all the cymbals and the hi-hats. Love his drumming. Can't say enough about Clem Burke's great drumming. And there's a creepy effect in, I thought it was one of the guys singing a low, almost subsonic backing vocal during the verses. But I found out by watching a video that it's actually, they lowered Deborah Harry's voice. So she's actually singing with herself. But it sounds like a male-female vocal. And you have to listen very carefully in headphones, earbuds to the song. And I looked it up because the way she hits certain words, I thought it was glottal singing or vocal fry. But I watched this vocal expert who has tons of videos and a channel on YouTube. I think his name was Ken Tamplin, Vocal Academy. And he said she just had phlegm in her throat. And the way she was singing it, it came out. And he assumed that she said, well, I want to do another take. And the producer said, no, leave that. It sounds great. So she has such a very cool vocal effect. One way. It just sounds like she's croaking a little. And it just adds some menace to the song. Besides Jimmy Destry's keyboards, great guitar work. And I love the police siren sound effect on Jimmy Destry's keyboards that start over here, then move to the other ear, and just go back and forth towards the end of the song. It's a great song. It's one of their best rock songs. One Way or Another, my number 6.
All right, very good. All right, my number 6 is going to go back to that famous year of 1980. And this time we're going to go to probably the song you thought I was going to say, and that's going to go to the soundtrack, The American Gigolo, and that's none other than Call Me, another number 1 smash here. band was on fire at this point. Um, yeah, what can you say about it? It was number one for 6 consecutive weeks. So, I mean, that's saying something in itself at that point. It
Yeah,
was actually, mhm.
if I could just add for a sec, pre-MTV, that got tons of radio airplay. The rock stations, new wave stations, and the pop stations. It was a huge song. You couldn't escape it in 80.
Yeah, you're right, because it was on all the different types of formats. So
Mm-hmm.
the more the more you were able to cross over to other genres without really taking away from it, man, that's what broke a lot of these bands and really got them. Look at the Eagles, for example. They kind of started out a little country-ish, a little James Taylor-ish, and then all of a sudden, boom, then they got more rock, and they were everywhere too, and they still are, and they've never really, even after breaking up for a long period of time, they never really got away from anything. They're just always been a huge, huge draw, and even when they put out new albums, the Eagles, they still sell, even though I'm not a big fan of Long Road Out of Eden or whatever,
Exactly.
you know, but it is what it is. All right, so getting back to Call Me was written by Deborah Harry along with Giorgio Moroder, who pretty much came up with the instrumental part of the song, and Deborah Harry came in and whipped out the lyrics there. Um, Originally Stevie Nicks was good, so he had asked Stevie Nicks to perform it, but because of her new contract she signed with her for her solo career with Modern Records, he went with Deborah Harry here. So yeah, so who knows what would have happened if Stevie Nicks would have ended up being the one to record it. I don't think we would have gotten the same result for sure. But yeah, just a great song. Some people will say it was overkill back in the day. It was one of those songs you heard, like you said, everywhere. But I don't think you hear it as much anymore. And I really like the concert performance of it. They play in concert really sounds good. I think they do it justice, even compensating for the original version, kind of giving it a little bit of change in flavor in the live performance of it compared to, the single with the more bubbly gummy sound, the more popish sound of 1980. So, yeah, that's the one thing I like about Blondie is that they always they're not afraid to take the song and change it up in a live setting, even a little bit, just to help have it come across better to the audience. So yeah, I mean, even Heart of Glass, they do that with, they don't, keep the disco theme going there or anything like that. So yeah, so Call Me for me is my number 6 Blondie song.
It's a great song. Excellent choice, Joseph. Excellent choice. My number 5, you mentioned already, from Eat to the Beat, the Deep album track, the last song on side 1 of the vinyl, because I bought it on vinyl when it came out. I think it was late 1979. Accidents Never Happen. 4 minutes of new wave rock goodness. It's a little robotic. It's icy. It comes across as Debbie Harry is a great vocalist. She's a great interpreter. She sings jazz with the Jazz Passengers. She sings rock, disco, new wave, girl group style, reggae, as we mentioned. She could sing any style and do it well. She's a very underrated vocalist, and so many women copied her over the years, and she probably doesn't get the credit she deserves. Also an actress, as I mentioned earlier. She was in some cool movies, but that's a par for the course. Accidents Never Happen. I love Jimmy Destry's eerie keyboards. He wrote the song. And of course, Klemberg's drumming. He's just awesome. And just the way I'm watching the video for the song, and I'm trying to watch his drumming at the beginning, just the speed he's hitting it during the first verse, the intro. Amazing drummer. He's their secret weapon. He's the secret sauce in Blondie. Besides, of course, Debbie Harry's pinup looks, a great voice, her stage presence, obviously. Like you, I saw them live only once. I saw them with the new Cars. I forgot who opened for whom because it was like 17 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. Jones Beach in the summer of 2007, 2008. Great show. And like you said, they do extend certain songs live and have a vocal vamp and just extended instrumentation. And they always put on a good live show. So that is my number 5. Accidents Never Happen from E to the Beat, a great rock song. And it has some great guitar work at the end. It fades out too soon. That's what, I wish it were 5 minutes instead of 4 minutes in length, because all of a sudden the guys, Frank Infante, Chris Stein, they're playing some nice lead guitar riffs, and the song just gets quiet and fades out. Oh, wish it was longer. That's my number 5. Sorry.
All right. Wow. I'm surprised it's not your number 1, the way you just really built it up there nicely.
Oh, such a good song.
That means that must mean the 4 above it must really be good too, because it probably was hard to keep it down in number 5, probably.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm to the point right now where my top 5 here is just one great song after another. You just starting off with my number 5 is From E to the Beat again. Another song that was never released as a single. None other than the Chris Stein penned Shayla. So that's what we got there for our number 5. Shayla was just another one of those songs on the album. It just kind of stood there, and I just really love Deborah Harry's vocal on that song, and the band really puts in a great performance on it. It's just great. I mean, and Beat to the Beat, for some reason I've been mentioning a lot of that album, and well, we'll see if we're done talking about any songs from that album. But as of right now, number 5 is Shayla.
All righty, Rudy. My number 4, you mentioned already. Written by Jack Lee from The Nerves. Hanging on the Telephone. It reached number 5 in the UK. Another one of their great rock songs. It's got excellent guitar riffs, amazing guitar solo. It's short and sweet and to the point, because the song's only a little over 2 minutes. It's 2:17. It's like the length of a Ramones song, who were also good friends with Blondie, and Debbie and Joey worked together, but more on that another time. And I love Jimmy Destry, once again, his burbling keyboards, his organ stabs, and Debbie Harry's scintillating, slightly menacing vocal I wrote down. Plus, lastly, I will mention that in this video for Hanging on the Telephone, I think it's the best that Deborah Harry ever looked. Just her face in this video, the way she looks and sings, mesmerizing. Can't keep her eyes off her. Even I turned away from watching Klimber to watch Debbie in this video, because she's stunningly beautiful. And this is a great rock song. Hanging on the Telephone, like you said, my number 4 from Parallel Lines.
All right. So my number 4 is one that you mentioned already. So obviously we're on the same track there. And that's going to be the 1999 single taken off of No Exit, Maria. And I'm still trying to process how the heck is this song number 1 in the UK, and in the US it didn't even crack the top 40. It makes no sense whatsoever, because I used to make a best of compilation. I started it in 1999, oddly enough, as it may seem, because that's when I got my computer. And what I would do is I would take every song that came out that year that I liked, I'd compile a list, and then I would make a best of CD of that year of songs. And obviously I got Maria on that album. It's just shocking though how this song, I think that's about the time frame of when music was accessible because of Napster on the internet. It wasn't really getting played on the radio, because at that point rock was just kind of making a comeback, because that's when the first Poison tour, when they got reunited following the fallout from the grunge era. 99 was the first tour that they got back together. But that's kind of when rock finally started to pick itself up, dust itself off.
You had a lot of
grunge.
But you had a lot of new metal and teen pop. The boy bands,
right?
The girls were coming, like Britney and Christina. Music was changing, and rock just wasn't in vogue.
But 99 was when it finally started to pick back up, finally, after its knockdown from Kurt Cobain and company there. But just like you said, that I guess the US just was one of the last places to adapt, you know, number one in the UK, folks. You can't argue with it.
Yep.
Number 4 for me, Maria.
Number 3, From E to the Beat, 1979, written by Deborah Harry and Chris Stein. Actually, the other way around, produced by Chapman. And Clem Burke's drumming makes this song for me. And they were doing a run through on it because he just thought it was a run through. He said, "Oh, they're not going to use my take on it." And then he was surprised when that's the take they put on the album. The number 27 song, Dreaming. And his drum work is phenomenal on this song. It's rocking, it's upbeat, it's catchy. Debbie's vocals. What could I say about it? It's an amazing song, and it's just one of my favorite Blondie songs. I never get tired of Dreaming. From E to the Beat, 1979. That's my number 3. An amazing rock and roll song with an awesome vocal turn by Deborah Harry.
All right. So my number 3, we're digging deep here. Never charted. Comes from, of course, what other album can it be? No, none other than the 1979 Eat to the Beat. And it is one that you mentioned already, but I just love this song, and I was so fortunate to see them get to play this one live one time. So I was really amazed at how great it sounded, even though it was in a club, and you don't always get the best sound in a club compared to like a nice outdoor show. But man, sounded great. Union City Blue, man. Oh my God. To hear that one live, it was unfreaking believable. And just a great song. Great song. And that's why it's my number 3. And I'll tell you, when I first started compiling the list, I knew what my number 1 was. I didn't know where everything else was going to fall. I figured this one would either going to be number 2 or number 3, but it made number 3 because the one before it is just a little bit better. So we'll be getting to that shortly. But Union City Blue is definitely a must listen to. If you don't know or are not familiar with this song, me and Davey both highly recommend you give this one a listen. Give the whole Eat to the Beat album a listen, because this is a great album. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a lot of great songs on here that are just waiting to be devoured if you're a music fan. So number 3, Union City Blue.
I'm impressed. That's very high. That's a very high placement. I wasn't even sure if it was going to make my top 10. It was between that and another song. And then I said, okay, I'm choosing that. But I'll mention my number 11 in the honorable mentions when we're done. My number 2, I thought was always my favorite Blondie song, but it's at number 2, unfortunately. It's such an amazing song, written by Chris Stein from 1978, the 4-minute Deep album track, which features on lead guitar, and it's him, Robert Fripp, Fade Away and Radiate. Wow. It reminds me of the Cars song Moving in Stereo. It's a little avant-garde, it's experimental, and it just has that eerie sound because of the keyboards and Fripp's guitar. And this song just takes me away to a different place. And Debbie's vocal on it, just the beginning of the song with the weird guitars and keyboards, and then just that lone drum beat from Burke, bump, bump, bump. And then Debbie's vocal comes in. It's just her a cappella vocal with that drum beat occasionally. And then the whole band kicks in. And Fade Away and Radiate, an amazing song. If you don't know it from Parallel Lines, you must hear it. It's experimental. It's amazing. It's my number 2, Fade Away and Radiate, featuring Mr. Robert Fripp on lead guitar.
All right. Thank you. All right. So number 2. It's a song that you mentioned already. And it comes from none other than Eat to the Beat. So that should leave no doubt about what number 2 is, and that is Dreaming. Just like you said, I can't really add too much more to it other than, why did it only go up to number 27? That's another shock. I used to hear this thing on the radio all the time.
Rock radio played it all the time.
I thought for sure it would have been a top 10 smash the way they used to play it. Just shocked that it wasn't. When I'm going through here making this list, I'm going, That's number 27. The song is phenomenal. But I know that they're pretty high on the song too. They probably are shocked it only went that high as well either, because this is definitely it's one of those songs when you think of Blondie, you pretty much think of Dreaming as one of the big ones for sure. You know, that's just that good of a song. Right away when they start playing that one on the radio or wherever you're listening to it, you know right away who it is, no doubt about it. Those vocals, the guitar playing, everything. It just the song brought it all together. Just great stuff here. And that's where I got it. Number 2, Dreaming.
And speaking of number 2, it placed, I neglected to say, I don't think I said it, number 2 in the UK. So it was almost a top single, number 1 single in the UK. They love Blondie in the UK. I think we may have the same number 1 here, but let's see. My number 1 comes from what appears to be your favorite album by Blondie, E to the Beat, 1979. Another song that used to get a lot of FM and even club, new wave radio station airplay. It reached number 39 in the Billboard charts, written by Debbie Harry and keyboard player Jimmy Destry. 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Atomic is my number 1. And it was also a number 1 smash in the UK. It was number 1 there, number 39 here. Explain that to me. Maybe Blondie were just a little bit too out there with certain songs, and not every song hit in America when a lot of them really hit in England. The bass in this song by Nigel Harrison, excellent, makes the whole song. They even give him a bass solo. How many songs in 1979 had bass solos? Not too many. That's more of a throwback to the early 70s with prog rock. But the keyboards in this song, Debbie's vocal performance, just those high notes that she hits, amazing. And this is definitely my favorite Blondie song. When I was in the Ramones tribute band for over a decade, we did a lot of shows with a Blondie tribute band that is still out there playing the tri-state area called Sunday Girl. I think they have I'm pretty sure they have a different singer now. And their old bass player, I don't think she's with them anymore, Lois, this short little woman with this big bass guitar. And I used to love when she would do the bass solo, and just her bass in Atomic was really good. And she just mirrored Nigel Harrison in a great way. And this is easily, sadly, because I do love Fade Away and Radiate too, but Atomic is my number 1 Blondie song. But it's so close with Fade Away and Radiate.
Okay, and getting back on that British thing there, 6 number 1s in the UK. 6.
And only 3 here, right?
I believe so. I believe you got that magic.
Oh, wait, 4. 4. Heart of Glass. 4 number 1.
4 to number 1, yeah. Heart of Glass, yeah. So, they definitely love them more over there. But to answer your question, no, I do not have the same number 1 song, which is great. Yeah, because we got too many the same. I didn't think we'd have this many the same.
And I predicted 5 that we'd have in common.
Well, I think we might be right on that money there. But this song is not going to be it, baby. This is without a doubt to me the best Blondie song, written by former Blondie bassist Gary Valentine, from the album Plastic Letters, 1977. Yeah, we're going way back here. And it's going to be when I heard this song, even though I did hear it like later on, because, obviously Heart of Glass was definitely the first song I ever heard by Blondie. I didn't know who they were at that point, but, from there they progressed. But when I went to start finding out more about them, this song happened to be on the Best of Blondie cassette that I had. And, what can you say? Lead off single from this album, none other than I'm Always Touched by Your Presence, Dear. I just simply love this song. It's one of those ones that, for whatever reason, just gives me goosebumps when I hear it. It's just, man, what I would do to hear this one live. But man, oh man, just a great song. Never got a lot of airplay, never got overplayed. Perfect song in my estimation there. Just a great song.
You surprised me with that one.
Yeah, well, I knew right away this was going to be my number 1. I knew there was no doubt. And sometimes you know how it is. You have that one no doubt about it. Like probably what like yours with Atomic there. You knew right away, no doubt about it. Atomic was the one. And don't get me wrong, I like Atomic, as we will see coming up here. So number one for me, I'm always touched by your presence, dear. 1977.
That is a fascinating pick. You got me with that one. You pulled a rabbit out of the hat, Joseph. Good one. And more on that song in a moment. But my number 11, or my honorable mention, that almost flip-flopped with Union City Blue, which was my number 10, Call Me. Such a great
Okay,
song.
all right.
Even though it was played a lot a long time ago, 44 years ago, 43, 44 years ago in 1980, 81, you don't hear it that much anymore. And it's a great song from the American Gigolo movie soundtrack with Richard Gere. Call Me was an honorable mention for me. Also, I'm Always Touched by Your Presence, Dear was up there, which I discovered on the greatest hits, the best of Blondie, like you said, with the blue cover. Also on that album, Rip Her to Shreds, another great song. Heart of Glass, I have to mention. And I'll mention two more fast. From E to the Beat, Slow Motion. It just sounds like a 60s girl group song, a Phil Spector type song with that beat, and you could snap your fingers to it. I love Slow Motion, another great deep album track from E to the Beat. And the last one I'll mention, the title track from E to the Beat, which is like a 2.5-minute punk song.
Yep.
Title track is really good too. The lyrics are weird, it's bizarre, but it's a very catchy, upbeat, punky type song. Blondie were like the only band that were billed as a punk band that ever had mainstream success. Didn't happen with the Ramones, didn't really happen with the Clash until they released a couple of singles in the early 80s, but Blondie somehow encompassed all different genres of music. One of the few bands to be on the rock chart, the pop chart, new wave, new music stations, the dance charts with all their disco sounding type hits, the R&B charts. They were all over. They broke every barrier. And this is before MTV. So kudos to the band and just their wide palette of musical flavors and tastes. Love this band. Excellent band.
Very good. Yep, I agree with all that.
Thanks.
All right, so my honorable mentions, if we were going by numbers, I'll do it like you did it. 11 would have been Atomic. So,
Yes.
E to the Beat, that was definitely a song that stood out for me. One Way or Another, number 12. Picture This, number 13.
I had that too.
Number 14, from the 2017 release Pollinator. I might as well lump them together, 14 and 15. I got two from Pollinator. I got My Monster, which was like the lead track that you heard if you were able to see it online or however you got your music. And then Fragments, another song on Pollinator that really stood out for me. Those two songs, they just didn't quite have the mustard to get past these other ones, but I figured it was definitely worth an honorable mention for these two. I would definitely recommend giving Pollinator a spin. It's a little bit more modern sounding, but yet, it's Deborah Harry singing, folks. So yeah,
Awesome singer.
yeah. So that's what I got there. So there you go, folks. We got the top 10 Blondie with some honorable mentions, and yeah, hopefully we'll turn you on to some good music here that maybe you just weren't aware of or never took the time, because it's not, and like you said, these albums, they had a good run, Parallel Lines, E to the Beat, Auto American, all platinum albums, all in a row, no breaks in between. And it's just weird. I would have to assume, considering all the great songs on these three albums, you'd have to assume if they went back in and recertified, they both all three of them. Well, yeah, all three of them should be at least at double platinum. Some maybe even triple, probably like Parallel Lines.
Yeah.
Although I'm partial E to the Beat over Parallel Lines at least. So, all right.
Well,
So there.
I think it was, if I could just add two more things fast. I think it was Chris Stein's health that caused the downfall and the breakup of the band. Probably just drugs, ego, personality clash, money. I'm not making as much as you are type of stuff. Who knows? you never know what the inner workings of a band are, but most of it comes down to those reasons. Different managers, different people talking in your ear, telling you you're the star, break away, do a solo album. But I think it's mainly Chris Stein's health and the fact that Debbie stood by him through his sickness. He was really sick. He came close to death. And it's great that he's still around and still making music and still a force in the music industry. And just to end on a good note, I want to announce that on my channel, Cretin Classics, I'm about to have my first guest. My first guest is none other than Mr. Joey Sudo. And we're going to be filming a show that'll be up soon. So look for Joseph on Cretin Classics very soon. We're going to be doing the top songs of a different band, and I won't reveal the band yet. So it's a big teaser, something to look forward to in the next week or so, everyone. Because I'm guessing that Joe is going to get up his video before I do.
Yeah, I would definitely say check out your Cretin's Classics channel so you know exactly what we're talking about. Because if you don't go there, you're not going to be in the know.
Precisely. Thank you, sir.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so we will see you later on in the other video, and we got this one coming more down the road here. We'll have other guests on as well, so stay tuned. And thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate you, seeing if you can pass along the share button. Let your friends know. Let them know about, what we're doing here by ranking these great albums and songs of these artists. We got many that we've already done, and the Lord willing, and we got many more to come, hopefully. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thanks
Sounds
for
good.
having me on. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Signing off.